This is Season 3, Episode 3, Steve Ridout.
This is the Actual Fluency Podcast, helping you become a better language learner by providing motivating weekly inspiration, as well as top tips and tricks from expert guests. And now, your host, Chris Broholm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast. This is your host, Chris Broholm. As per usual, Episode 3 of the third season is underway, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Steve Ridout about his website, ReadLang. And we're going to be talking about how it is to be a freelance developer as a language learner and aspiring polyglot. And Steve is currently based in Spain, and we'll get into that much more in the interview in just a minute. But before that, I just have a few quick announcements, as I like sometimes to take these few first minutes of the interview time to talk about. The first announcement is the third season is full underway, and I'm so happy for the support you guys are giving me so far. I've put the episodes on YouTube. You can see video. You can see my terrible hair. You can see my terrible everything, my cupboards. I will be working on the production quality down the line, but you have to start somewhere. If you want to do videos on YouTube, you don't go out and buy a $2,000 studio set with a new 1080p camera. It has to grow a little bit. So I'm testing it out now, but so far I'm really enjoying it, and I think it adds a lot of character. So if you have any comments, feedback about the videos, I know they're kind of ghetto right now, but any constructive comments as to how I can improve it without spending a lot of money at the moment, then I'd love to hear it on the YouTube page, Actual Fluency, or in the comments section on the blog as well. You're very welcome to contact me there. So all the new episodes are on YouTube in video format. You can check them out there, and I'll be doing one episode a week as per usual. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that this season I'm trying to compile questions for an Ask Chris segment on YouTube, or actually also in audio format. It's not going to be a serious, language learning wisdom from a polyglot. For that, I think you should go to Ollie Richards' podcast, iwillteachyourlanguage.com, where he answers reader questions. And Ollie has learned quite a few languages to a very high level, so he's much better placed at that. But if you have any questions, about me, if you've been listening to the program, you probably know about me. Any questions about, what I'm facing, learning Russian, Hungarian, Esperanto, Danish native, how's it like to live in Budapest, to work full-time online and do this language blogging thing, any question that you might have, feel free to ask me, and I'll compile them and make some kind of episode out of it. Not a podcast episode per se, but just a standalone episode or video, just to give people the opportunity, because I get emails once in a while with people asking questions, and I figured it would be nice that everyone got a chance to listen to them. So that's just about it, and just two plugs here at the end. Me and Brian Kwong from the Add One Challenge are doing a free presentation later in the month of November 2015. So that's in a few weeks from now, if you're listening to this episode just as it comes out. And why aren't you? So basically what we're going to be talking about is motivation, because first of all, that's my favorite topic. If you go to the blog, you'll see I often talk about it: self-development, motivation, how to stay learning, because actually learning a language is not so much about the technical nitty-gritty details, the vocabulary and the pronunciation and all the working parts. It's actually about keep going. Whatever you do, just keep going. And what me and Brian are going to do is we're going to explore that topic, and we're going to give a lot of tips and tricks on how you can stay motivated. And it's going to be absolutely free, and it's going to be on the 27th of November. So mark your calendars. It's going to be in the afternoon if you're in Europe, and you can find all the information on actualfluency.com/add1. So that's all for me now, and I hope you enjoy this interview with Steve Ridout. And if you want to see the video of this, go to YouTube and you can see it there. All right. I'm joined today by the creator of ReadLang, Steve, and I normally butcher people's last name on the show very often, but is it a French-ish pronunciation, or how would you say it?
It's not. Everyone gets confused.
There you go.
Yeah, people think it's Ridout, like French, or the other one I get is Ridout, but it's
Ridout?
actually Ridout, it's pronounced.
Ridout. All right. Okay, good. Maybe I should just have the guests say their own names, like a roll call or something.
Yeah,
With their
yeah,
own
that's
names.
a good idea. You could just like leave a gap in the introduction and insert my audio of me saying my name or something like that.
From Volvo or something. That would be funny. All right, and Steve, obviously you're the creator of ReadLang, and I know some people out there probably don't know what it is. And instead of me trying to explain it, I figured, why don't you just give people, the elevator pitch of what ReadLang is?
Sure. Well, it's a website to help people learn languages by reading texts that they're interested in. So I originally created it to help myself read whole novels. So it's ideal for that. It's got a nice, like, distraction-free reader interface, a bit like reading a Kindle, where there's you upload a text and then it'll be nicely paginated, and you can click on any word or drag across any phrase to translate it to your first language. So you get you get the meaning really quickly. You get to understand something so it doesn't interrupt your flow of reading too much. And then later on, all those words and phrases, you can work on memorizing them with the flashcard system.
Simple but efficient is, I'd like to say.
Yeah. I thought it was a lot simpler than it turned out to be. When I first had the idea, it was like, this is just this little tool that I'll make for myself, and hopefully some other people will find it interesting. And I thought it sounded like a really simple idea, and it's turned out like it's almost 3 years later now. And the longer that I'm at it, it seems the more features that people want added to it, and the more things there are to do.
Right, the life of a developer or programmer. It's easy to see the final product, but I guess the path to it is long and winded, and lots of lots of code behind it, at least in any case.
Yeah, true. Well, and actually, the product itself, it grows. The scope of it grows beyond what you originally intended a lot of the time.
Right, and so obviously you have a background in uh, computer engineering. Is that what they call it these days, or do we just say
Yeah,
programming? Or
I did computer science.
right, yeah, that's what it was called when I was in school as well. But I don't know if they still call it that.
I think they do, yeah. But then I did something after that, which was computational science and engineering, which
Right.
kind of was using computer programs to simulate physical systems, like to simulate mechanical structures or that kind of thing. But yeah, computer science is the thing. But really, computer science is a lot of quite theoretical stuff, like a lot of mathematics and stuff like that, which day-to-day programmers wouldn't really use or need. But I guess it's nice to have in the back there.
Right, and you say you started the program because you wanted to learn Spanish. Can you just give us the backstory of why you came to a point where you wanted to or needed to learn Spanish, and what made you sort of start your own? What was the lack of methods out there?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess going back a bit further, I wasn't really into languages when I was in school. Like I grew up in Wales, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't really speak Welsh, although I can understand a bit of it because and I was decent at it in school, but that's not saying anything. I was one of the best in the class, but I actually chose then to do French instead because Welsh didn't seem very useful or cool or anything. And yeah, wasn't very interested. But later on, when I lived in London in a shared house with people from different parts of the world, like there were some Japanese people, like French, like different people would come and go, and that got me interested. Like I started, and I worked with some German people as well in a company in London, and so I kind of got a bit interested in languages then because I just thought that they were having this really cool experience of going to a different part of the world and having to learn a whole language, and some of them struggling with it. And I just felt embarrassed that, everything was so easy for me because I was an English speaker, and I didn't really feel I needed to, but I just thought it was an experience in life that was that I wanted. So I did dabble with some French and German. Then I took an evening class in German, but I didn't get very far. And then what really prompted me to learn Spanish was, one, I went on a kind of 4-month trip to South America and to Mexico. And then I did a little Spanish class when I was out there. I did like 2 weeks, and it was a slow process. Like I was generally hanging out with English speaking people in hostels and that kind of thing. So, I got the basics, a little grounding, but I'm not confident enough to with like a really tiny amount of knowledge, go out and start trying to speak to people just to strike up a conversation, other than maybe just ordering a drink at a bar or that kind of thing. So that was the start. And then what really got me keen to learn Spanish properly and get really fluent at it was my girlfriend, I met in London, and who is half Spanish and half English. And so hanging out with her friends in London, like a little group of Spanish friends, they would quickly switch to Spanish. They would sort of try 5 minutes talking English just because I was there, just to kind of not be too rude, but then it just inevitably lapses into Spanish pretty quickly. So I was sort of trying to pick up things there, and now I actually live in Madrid. So
cool. And we can get back to how you made that transition in a second. But first, I just wanted to ask you about if you can think back to the time when you were like, okay, I need to learn Spanish. I've got great sort of, let's say, contacts or partners in crime to actually get the speaking and practice and all that kind of thing. But what did you see in the learning landscape that was missing, or like what were you actually looking for at the time? Because I guess ReadLang has sort of developed over time. So I guess that wasn't, you're not seeing ReadLang 2015 4 years ago, or did you? Maybe.
Not exactly as it is now, no. But what it was like the materials that I'd used previous to ReadLang were Michel Thomas to start with, which I'd also use for French and German. And I think that's a brilliant first step in a language. I really like that, to get the feel of how the language structure is, and you get to learn the grammar without, in a kind of a natural kind of way and a fun way. It kind of gets you involved. And then, but quickly, I just wanted to get onto native materials as soon as possible. And that appeals to me, the idea of being able to read and enjoy texts and novels and that kind of thing. So in Spanish, I was trying to read like paperback novels. And I actually did get all the way through like the translation of The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, with a little paper dictionary next to me, and really not caring if I didn't understand it all, because I knew my level was too low to expect to understand the whole thing. It would have taken me far too long. But I just wanted to kind of breeze through it, and kind of extensive reading kind of approach, although I didn't know that term at the time. Sort of by osmosis, kind of just get the feel of the language and that kind of thing. And then later on, I tried another novel, Intervención, I think it was called. And I was really struggling through it. This one, I wanted to understand a bit more properly. And I was doing the same approach, and I just thought, this is ridiculous. It's taking far too long, and it's just not enjoyable. Like by the time I figured out what this paragraph meant, I couldn't remember what the previous one was about. It's that kind of thing. And I had an iPad, so I just thought, right, there's got to be some app that I can use on the iPad, some nice way to to read this text, and I couldn't find something that worked really smoothly. There was the Kindle app on there, and I'm not sure if you can now download dictionaries to translate on the Kindle. You can on the actual Kindle. I'm not sure about the app on the iPad. But I tried that before, and it was just a bit slow, the process of like tapping on a word and waiting for the definition to come, and it was all a bit slow. So I thought I wanted a way that was really rapid, and that also would keep a list of all the things I've translated, so that I could go back and review. So that was it, basically. And I knocked up this little prototype in a couple of days, which just sort of had an extra one chapter of this novel, and I could click on a word and they would change to the English version of the word. And I just really liked it. I just thought it was almost all of them were correct. There was a few translations of words that don't come out correct, obviously, because it used Google Translate to figure them out. But even with those incorrect ones in there, from the context, you can kind of tell that it's incorrect. And if you get 95% of those ones that you don't understand, that was kind of enough anyway. So that I just thought, yeah, even in this really ultra basic form, it was better than what I could find at the time. And so that gave me the motivation to try to make it. Cool.
And I'm hoping that a lot of people will follow that idea. Actually, I know a lot of people have as well, follow if there's something missing out there and you'd like to see it, make it happen. You don't have to learn how to program yourself. You can also just find a program and partner up with him or her. But one idea I really loved was that you said you were able to read through a book using a paper dictionary at a very low level of the language. I find that absolutely incredible, because maybe it's because I've been corrupted by the availability of every information everywhere, that if I have to sit down and it takes me more than, let's say, a few minutes, maybe at most, to read a page, I would just give up after 2 pages. I would just get so bored, and I'd be like, oh my God, where's my stimulation? So I find that pretty incredible. And
right. Yeah, I know what you mean. And I'm not sure if I would want to do it again. but especially when you're in the very early stage of learning a language, I think you have to get reward from very little silly things, And so even if I could just figure out, I didn't really know what was going on in a scene, but I could even just figuring out where they were in a scene, or who's talking to who, or you just think, oh, this is really cool. Like, this is a language that is almost incomprehensible to me, and I'm somehow piecing together little bits, and just finding pleasure out of those things. It gives you motivation to keep going. Right. I guess that's one of the huge things about people who are successful learning a language. I guess are good at motivating themselves and finding reward in things like that, and pleasure in things that that keeps them going.
Yeah, or finding methods that appeal to their personality, or creating them, indeed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everyone's got different things that turn them on, I guess. And there was a guy, I think you may have interviewed him, who talks about this gold list method.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Iverson, is it, or something like that?
Well, the gold list is David James, but
okay.
Iverson talks about a list method similar to it, but it doesn't have a fancy name yet.
Right, but that kind of thing, to me, it just sounds deathly boring.
Oh yeah.
but I'm it depends on your personality, and if that works for you, that's great. But
yeah, a list based on the dictionary, going from A to Z, I'm pretty sure was his method. And yeah, so that's definitely not something I would do.
Yeah. But so what is your favorite method? I hear you use Memrise a lot.
Yeah, for vocabulary, I find Memrise, and one of the struggles I have is enjoying native material, like you described. So what I try to do Obviously right now it's the language that I'm working the most on and have some level in is Russian, where I can actually put on a sitcom on YouTube and I can understand what's going on. And, I could probably explain to people what they said or what they inferred or anything, but I don't know individual words and phrases, at least not all of them. But the problem for me is that next level would be reading and writing. So that's definitely a scary part. But yeah, that's the problem because I just really don't have much time, and learning vocabulary, grammar, and just having tutoring lessons so you can speak is for me pretty easy to set up. But getting into a routine of reading a lot or even watching movies or TV shows for me can also get kind of annoying because there's just not much time. And although it's fun, I mean, it's a really fun sitcom I found in Russian. It's just it doesn't feel as fun as watching something in my own language or in English, probably English actually. Just because there's a sense of learning over it, and it's like an undertone of you're not really enjoying yourself, even though I am, and I totally am, and it's very beneficial. It's just like it feels a little bit like work, even though it's not.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah.
So maybe I should develop some kind of software that works in my favor. But when I discovered ReadLang, for instance, and I'm a big fan, I don't use it as much as I should. I'm guilty. But what I like about it is I could have it on in my Chrome all the time, and I could just open like BBC Russia or whatever, have like English news in Russian, and it would help me actually digest the news, and it wouldn't take long. And because I could input whole phrases, suddenly it actually started to make sense, because looking up one word at a time, although it could probably help you with most texts, I found that usually it actually gave problems in languages that are very different from the one you're looking up in, like English. So by looking up the phrases, I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
True. Yeah, sometimes it's a balance. I guess the more advanced you get, then it's also easier to know where you can click on a word and you'll get the meaning, or you just immediately know, even if you don't understand all the words, like you just realize that, this is a phrase that goes together. This is some idiom or something, and you'll just translate that. And
yeah,
and then depending on how rare it is, like most of the time it works, and then sometimes if it's a rarer idiom or something, that's the problem then that ReadLang still it won't solve completely, is that Google Translate won't have everything.
Right, and it has weaknesses, right? There are some languages that are weaker than others because less people report Google Translate.
Sure.
I don't know if you've seen any of this, where some of the languages supported are less likely to have problems. I guess the closer the languages are in form and style, the better they are at Google translating.
I guess that just the more materials that Google have as well, because I don't know if it's 100% based on this, but the way Google Translate works is that it gets massive amounts of texts, like huge corpuses in all the languages that like one of the corpuses is the European parliamentary proceedings or something, but then there's a lot more as well of probably more natural language that they have in all the different languages, and then their algorithm matches them up and can figure out what bits correspond to what bits, and that's how they get they train their machine learning thing.
What about the problem of if I look up an individual word with Google Translate via ReadLang, what about the problem of when a word has a lot of meanings, a lot of different meanings that are radically different? Does the Google Translate algorithm actually understand context, or will it just pick the most likely one out of the pack?
It does understand context, yeah. So what will often happen is you could click on one word and you may get the wrong meaning for your context, but then if you add a few words around it, then all of a sudden it'll change because it's picked up the context of what's around it. And so, yeah, quite often that's important.
That's pretty cool. And I guess that's a huge improvement over your dictionary pursuits, where you kind of had to find out yourself which was the right word for the context.
Yeah, I think the biggest improvement over the dictionary thing is just it's so frictionless and fast that there's no need to distract yourself looking something up in the dictionary and figuring it out. It's just you can almost carry on reading almost as fast as you were. You just click, see the translation, and keep going. So the idea is you keep in the story and keep getting the enjoyment out of the story and being motivated to keep going like that. And another thing that you can do, if you don't get the right meaning, you can open up an external dictionary as well, which there are preset ones depending on the language. For many of them, it's word reference. That works quite well for Spanish. For German, there's like Dict-Leo, and that works quite well. And you can actually customize that yourself then. If you've got a favorite online dictionary, that it has to work in a way that in the URL, you can put the word you're searching for.
Right.
So you put the like URL template in there with a special keyword for where the word goes, and then ReadLang will pop that in the sidebar when you open it.
Cool. And what do you think about the whole the reading element of language learning next to the speaking? Because I feel like in the last, let's say, a year or so, the focus has really shifted towards speaking, spoken or speak from day one, or get out and speak, get out and practice, talk to locals. You need to just learn how to speak first. And I understand that if you're really into reading and that's your only goal in a language, of course you would have a different opinion. But what do you think the part of or the role of reading is in a balanced language learner strategy who'd like to learn the language sort of on a larger scale, not just the reading or not just the speaking, but actually comprehensively learn a language? How important do you think it is to read and learn or maybe even read larger works?
I don't know if I can answer that sort of in a general way, because it depends on everyone, on how much you like it. Because I think the most important thing, if you want to actually speak to people, obviously the most important thing is to speak to people and to practice having conversations, and maybe use something like italki or one of those kind of things, or just get out there and talk to people.
But can we not use text like, let's say I'm reading some kind of, I don't know, some Spanish, maybe young adult fiction or something. That'll have a lot of dialogue in it, right? That'll have a lot of like, colloquial speech. It wouldn't be 1830s poets. So wouldn't that be helpful?
I think the thing for me is, although I think probably speaking to people is probably the best way, for a lot of people that comes with a lot of pressure and stress, especially if you're a little bit introverted. You can't spend all your time going out speaking to people, because I don't know, you'll just be exhausted. And sometimes it's nice to just sit back on your sofa and in a relaxed way soak in some vocabulary and improve your skills that way, so that next time you do go out and speak to people, you'll manage a bit better. So I think reading serves that role for a lot of people. It's sort of a less stressful way of getting fluent in a language. And also you just get exposed to a much wider range of vocabulary generally when you read, compared to speaking to people in person. There's been, I think studies have shown, when they analyze the vocabulary that's used, there's just quite a limited range of words that people use when they speak, and when they write, you just get exposed to a lot more words. Which actually, maybe that's an argument against going and reading very literary things when you're beginning. You probably want to start with something. I think generally nonfiction has a little bit more limited vocabulary. If you read nonfiction stuff, that's a little bit easier, I find, for a beginner. Or children's books, I suppose.
Nonfiction is good if you can combine some hobbies, like if you're really into I don't know, painting, and there's a book on painting, how to paint or how to become a better painter. I don't know, because that vocabulary will be something that you'd want to use at some point in a conversation as well. You'd want to tell someone that you're into painting, and then you'd need to know all the names for the see, I don't know any of the names in English because I'm not a painter, but you know, the thing you hold and the thing you paint on, and yeah, whatever. They're very technical names anyway.
The brush.
The brush. Oh yeah, I got that one.
Yeah. That's that's the key as well, is to have a plan personalized to you, not just to focus on very generic language learner materials, but learn that vocabulary and read about those things that you want to speak about. So you'll be way more motivated, and it'll be way more useful for you when it comes time to practice.
Right. And if you're really not into, you know, I don't know, 50 Shades of Grey or whatever, then, you know, you don't have to torture yourself through it in Spanish or whatever, you know. That's not what it's about. It's I would say it's about making it fun as well. You learn so much better, I feel like, if you're actually having fun with it and it doesn't feel like absolute torture.
Yeah. You mentioned you were watching sitcoms in Russian, and I wonder, I'm not sure if you noticed, on ReadLang you can actually watch videos as well.
No, I haven't seen that function yet.
Right, you should check that out, because it depends on the language. I'm not sure about Russian, but I know for French and German and Spanish, there are quite a lot of YouTube videos that what people can do is upload the transcription of a video and then link it to a YouTube video, and then they can synchronize the text to the video, and you'll see a little highlight following, kind of like watching a karaoke video, something like that. You'll see a highlight following the word, so you don't get lost. You can jump around to different parts of the video, and obviously the translation function works as well.
That's so cool.
I know in Spanish and German there are a series of videos called Extra. It's like a really cheesy sitcom made in the UK by Channel 4 for language learners, and they made the same scripts but in different languages.
Oh, really?
So it's a bit like Friends, but even more cheesy.
Oh god.
And so if you can get past that, then it's quite good. You know, it's quite easy to understand, and so those are there, and people really like sharing songs as well. So I quite like those.
Yeah, I love those as well.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I like Spanish is the language that I'm really focused on. But the songs in French, I just really like. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the French language maybe and singing that really fits for me.
Well, your name sounds French. I mean, who knows? You could be French.
Yeah, maybe there's some connection there.
Could be. So talking about ReadLang as sort of a professional venture, I mean, obviously, I suppose you and your girlfriend could have easily moved to the UK back when you had that decision. What made you decide to go to Spain? Was that based on the language, or did you have any other factors playing into that?
Oh, well, the main thing was that my girlfriend was doing a PhD that she'd started here in Madrid, and then she went to live in London for a while to work in London, and that's where we met. But she wanted to come back and finish her PhD. And at the same time, I was at a stage in my life where I wanted to leave my job and try to start my own venture. And I wasn't quite sure what it was yet, what it was going to be. I actually started making this little website to try to teach photography, the technical aspects of photography, by simulating like a camera in the browser, and you could play with the settings and stuff. And but after a month or so of working on that, I just realized that this is something people are going to use for half an hour. They kind of get it and then move on. And I didn't personally need it. So ReadLang made much more sense. It was something that I knew that I would be using myself every night.
Right.
So that made much more sense.
And you're full-time on it now?
Yeah, I've been full-time on it. I started in November 2012, which is almost 3 years ago now. And I've been full-time except for last year. I spent 3 or 4 months back in London doing some freelancing work to kind of save up a bit more money because ReadLang, for the first, almost its entire life so far, it hasn't been making enough for me to live on. But in the past, I'd say since April, it's been making just enough for me to live on, and it's climbing slowly. So that was a huge milestone for me.
That's incredible, and I really love to share these kind of stories because there are so many people out there, so many creative people who know things or they can do things, they have talent or ability, and they just, if they could see more options of how to, go out in the world. I mean, how cool is it that you're learning a new language and you're living in a new country and you're running your own business, whereas 4 years ago you probably weren't even imagining that you would run a language website. Anything's possible. And if you're into programming or if you want to learn programming, that's definitely one avenue that will definitely give you a lot of opportunity, like translation or interpretation as well. But obviously it takes a lot longer to learn a few languages to translate into than a programming language. So I find it really cool. It's awesome that you can do that, and hopefully you can keep developing the site, make more features, and make it more valuable for users or get more users so that you can branch into other products maybe or expand your offering.
Yeah, sure. There's I'm always seduced by wanting to work on new things, but there is a ton to improve on ReadLang. There's been on the cards for ages to make apps for iOS and Android, and I still don't know when I'll get around to it, but some point I'm sure I'll get around to that. Yeah, right now I'm working on something that will allow people to kind of share, I don't know what to call them, but maybe reading lists or that kind of thing. So you can create a little list of texts or videos or whatever, or to organize them yourself personally, and then to share them with the community.
Right. So text, any kind of text, could be novels, or is it just a list of what you're going to read?
It'll be it'll be a list, but it'll be the actual text as well. So you'll have to upload the texts, and it could be novels. Although sharing novels publicly, then that would mean they'd have to be out of copyright texts. Mm-hmm. But there's a ton of other learning materials that are out there, and a problem at the moment is just finding them. So if somebody can do the work of curating some of that content that's on the internet and putting them together for people to make little courses, in effect, I suppose, then I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, definitely. And do you have any language missions coming up or in the future? Would you like to learn French actually, or are there any other projects that you're thinking about?
Not seriously at the moment, but I would like to learn another language, and I'd like to live in another country, and along with that, learn another language, because for me, I think that's like an important part of the motivation of the whole thing, is either planning to live somewhere or living somewhere. Because if not, then there are so many other things that I can do with my time that it feels hard to justify learning a language just for the sake of learning a language, for me anyway. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I was trying to convince my girlfriend to move to Berlin because I really like Berlin when I went there. But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Needs some more convincing.
She's from Spain. She likes the sun and
Yeah, there isn't much sun
in the summer. It's very nice, but the winters are probably pretty brutal.
Yeah, I guess you can do like part-time, just stay in Spain for the summer and go to, or the other way around, I suppose. Stay in Spain for the winter and be in Berlin for the summer. But then you have a mediocre summer and a mediocre winter.
Yeah,
which is pretty bad, actually.
No, escaping Madrid in the summer is definitely a good idea, though. It's too crazy. In July and August, it's 40 degrees, and
God. You need the siestas then.
Yeah, you do. You can see where the siestas came from, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to go back to your point on motivation, I was learning Russian in Denmark with no Russian people around me, and it's very hard. And I had no plans of going to Russia, which is actually interesting because that was the first question people asked me when I said I'm learning Russian. They were like, "Oh, so when are you going?" I'm like, "What? Going where?" They're like, "To Russia." And I was like, "No, I'm not going." And I could tell, like you mentioned, the kind of the effect that has on motivation. It's not that radically different, I would say. I live in Hungary now, and yes, it does motivate me to learn more, but at the same time, I would say it's the exact same motivational resources or the same self discipline that I'm drawing on. The only difference is that when I walk out the door, I'll hear the language that I'm learning, which is useful, and I'll see signs that I can assimilate into meaning at some point, and it will give me sort of a daily reminder every time people speak to me in Hungarian, and I have to embarrassingly say I don't speak it or speak anything.
Mm.
So I would say the difference is there for sure, but I'd also caution people that going to a country is not like an automatic prescription for unlimited motivation. I would say it's especially Europe where everyone speaks English so well in most countries, and I'm in Budapest. The English level here is probably one of the lowest in Western Europe. I guess it is Eastern Europe, so that makes sense. But even here, I could definitely live on English with no problem. There's a huge tourist zone, and all the bars and the restaurants will obviously have some kind of foreign language skills. So you can definitely live without speaking the language, which is a bit of a problem, actually.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's really easy to fall into that expat trap, and yeah, you still have to find the motivation within you to push yourself when you live somewhere to practice.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
the thing that happens as well when you live in another country is it's like really, really easy to make friends with other expats. So you've
Yeah.
got this like shared experience and you just click straight away with people that maybe you wouldn't even get on with back in your own country, but you've just got that connection of being foreigners in another place. And
That's so true. That's so true. It's like, oh, you're from Denmark. It's like, hey, we're best friends now, and it's like, I don't really share any interests with you or any opinions, but sure, let's be friends. It's so true. One of the things that I've been trying to do is also go to the local events. Like I'm going to the German meetup, for instance, and there are lots of Hungarian people there. So I'm like, okay, I'll make Hungarian friends as well. So I have people who I can actually speak the language to, which I think is important. Without that, it would be like being home in Denmark, I guess, because I'd still have to Skype people to get any practice in.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Awesome, awesome. So if people are interested in joining the ReadLang service, so what does it cost? We haven't covered that yet. So what's the cost of all these great features?
Well, actually, you can use almost all of it for free.
What?
Well, you can join up for free, and you can translate an unlimited number of single words for free. You can practice as many flashcards as you like for free, and then the main restriction on the free plan is that when you translate phrases, then you can do 10 of those per day for free. And then if you want to go above 10 a day to unlimited phrases, you pay either $5 a month or $48 a year.
What a steal. I think that's too cheap, Steve.
Yeah, maybe. It's been slowly increasing since I started it, but
The first price was ridiculous. I remember you talking about it. What was the first price point you put out?
the first price point was $10 a year.
That's hilarious.
But, this is my first venture like this, making a website. So I was just very excited to have anyone pay anything,
Right.
to
Yeah.
use. It was just validation that this is something that people find valuable. That even if they're getting some of it for free, they're willing to pay. But yeah, I guess I don't know. At this price point that it is now, I think it feels like it could work if if I get enough people on board, and there's enough of a market out there, I think, with people learning languages. Like, you just look at the kind of numbers of users that sites like Duolingo have got. I know that's a completely free service as well, but if I can just get, like, currently I've had 40 something thousand people sign up, not paying, but sign up for free, and I think it's about 1.7% of those end up paying.
Right.
So if I can get that 40,000 number up to anywhere near a fraction of what Duolingo's got in there.
Just get 40,000 subscribers. I mean, this
Well,
podcast is very popular, so you never know what happens. You might get a surge. But anyway, no, I mean, obviously, I don't think I'm probably one of the cheapest people in the world when it comes to like language learning products, because I think that there is so much available, and like you said, there's so much available for free, that if I have to go out and pay something every month for a service, it needs to be an amazing service. Like, something that I do pay for is something like Hungarian Pod 101 that has a library of thousands and thousands of files. And actually, I could just go in and download all of it and cancel my subscription. But, I also kind of want to support the company making more content, and, continuing to update, and also making new languages is also fun, even though they have made a ton of them. But that's why I would say, I wouldn't see your service at something like $20 a month, but the $10 a year was definitely a bit too cheap, I feel like. But then again, you also have the people who just support you. I guess they're like, yeah, I love using the service. It helps me a lot. I might not even be using the premium features, but I'll still subscribe because I support what he's up to. And the fact that people subscribe also allow you to add new features all the time. Whereas if people didn't subscribe, you would, you'd have to find a real job, and then you wouldn't have time to add. Well, a real job, that's probably, you know what I mean? You wouldn't have time to add the features. Exactly. So yeah, I hope that people also see this thank you economy in play, and that it grows. And I hope that for my own personal sake, that I can actually get into a routine where I just use it. I mean, even just 10 minutes a day, I think, reading a news article in Russian or whatever language I'm learning. I know this is what Alex Rawlings does with, he's talked about ReadLang before in his, actually at the Polyglot workshops, he mentioned ReadLang as one of his favorite resources to stay updated in languages, because he could just go onto the news and read like, Russian, Greek, whatever. And it allowed him to do that very fast, and that's what I hope to do anyway.
Yeah. No, I was really flattered and happy when I saw that he'd recommended ReadLang in those workshops and on Facebook as well. Obviously, it's really impressive what he's achieved, all the languages that he speaks.
Yeah, for sure, and I feel like he's probably also somebody who maybe not prefers necessarily, but he definitely puts a lot of emphasis on the written word as a learning tool. So, I mean, you should probably send him a T-shirt or something.
Yeah, you're right. I need to get a design. Need to design a T-shirt first, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that would be a smaller problem, I suppose. But anyway, Steve, as it always is, time has been flying, and we're at the end of this episode, unfortunately. But before we end here, just wanted to say thank you for, well, first of all, thank you for creating ReadLang, which I think is amazing, and thank you for taking the time to come and share your experience with not only creating your own business in a way, which is language related, which I know a lot of people are interested in, but also your story on how you got into Spanish and moving to Spain as an experience. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. No, it's been really cool.
Awesome. Are you going to come to Berlin next year?
Yeah, I think it's very likely. Yeah.
It was good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
But did I see you this year?
No, I didn't go this year. I went year before last. I should have gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I met you there. I met you there last year. I remember we were talking in the bar.
Yeah.
The rooftop bar with 50-minute beer service, but yeah, it was good fun. I think that's one of the events every year that I recommend to anyone, really. I mean, you don't even need to like languages. You can just come up and have fun, actually, because people are so nice and everything is so motivational. And I just go after one day. I'm like, okay, I need to go into my room and study some languages.
Yeah, it's good to give you the motivation. And yeah, it's a really fun experience.
And you can show the ReadLang t-shirts, of course.
Yeah, that's definitely right. 100%.
I mean, that's obvious, right? All right, Steve, I'm going to let you go now, but thank you for coming on, and stay in touch.
Cool. Okay, thanks for having me, and yeah, see you soon.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Actual Fluency Podcast.